start. Let me start by, my name is Annette Kolmos. I'm directing the UNESCO Center for PBL, which is actually organizing these webinar events and the flipped IRSPBL 2020 and the IRSPBL 2021. And this is one of the last sessions. It has really been great during the year to have had these presentations. So we keep up, we have a touch base in the whole PBL society. For this special session, that will be focused on the teacher role in PBL, which is very important. And we have 3 presentations where we will start out with these 3 very short presentations. And they're coming from 3 different countries, actually, from Denmark, from Germany, and from Colombia. So we will get perspectives from different sides, different countries as well. And the first one will be Mette Møller, who will present a paper on the role of the teacher in a PBL teaching process. The next one is Liliana Fernando Samanca. Liliana, I hope I pronounced the last name correct, who will present a paper on encouraging faculty towards the curriculum transformation of engineering programs, trying to motivate faculty. And Carsten Menzel will present the last paper in the session on assessment methods in a split level PBL 2, the second, for building information modeling. So I will now invite Mette to start out with the first presentation on the role of the teacher in a PBL teaching process. Please, Mette.
Thank you, Annette. I will just share my slides. You can see the slides now?
Yes, perfect.
Perfect. So I will be presenting the article, The Role of the Teachers in a PBL Teaching Process, that I wrote together with Henrik Rothe, which is also here today, and 2 teachers from the Higher Technical Examination Program, Rikke Slot Christensen and Jutta Prip. First, I would like to just shortly give you an introduction to the context of the research, and then just shortly say something about why we got interested in this specific topic, why we wanted to write an article about this, and then afterwards say something about the outcomes, the findings of the article. And Henrik will jump in or add if he has anything that he thinks needs to be added, if I'm missing something or... So yeah, I'll just get started. The context is the Danish Higher Technical Examination Program, which we here in Denmark normally refer to as HTX. Now, HTX is a 3-year high school education program with a very specific focus on natural sciences and engineering. And it's the only program in Denmark with this specific focus. Now, the program started back in the 1980s, because there was a political and vocational focus on having high school education streaming directly towards science and engineering in higher education. At HTX, we have 2 very specific profile subjects. The one is technology, and the other one is technical science. These specific topics are very important for the education. And to give you sort of like a short insight into how important they actually are, I can tell you that the students have technology in the first and the second year of their study at a B level, which means they have around 200 hours of technology teaching each year, first and second year. And then in the third year, they have what is called technical science subject, which is a subject where they can actually choose a specific field, maybe depending on what they want to do afterwards, what they want to study afterwards. Could be building, could be design. There's specific programs And for that subject, which is an A-level subject, they have around 325 hours per year, which is around 1/3 of the schedule for the third year study. So it's quite extensive. And both of the profile subjects have problem-based learning as a central teaching pedagogy. Yes, so we started being interested in this as I was doing observations at HTX in Aalborg for different reasons. I was trying to look at what kind of language or language games, what kind of concepts that they actually use teaching technology and technical science. And in doing that, it became very clear that the teacher had a very wide role, a very hybrid role that they have to fill out, and it seemed very complex. So I started out talking to Henrik about this, and he has a very extensive knowledge about the education as well. So we started discussing, you know, how could that be? And that was sort of where the interest started, writing about this and investigating it even more. And we started out doing that by doing observations at 2 different HTX schools, one in Aalborg and one in Odense. And we did it over a period of around a month at each school. And of course, talked to the teachers while we were there about the teaching. And in addition, we also did 3 interviews with the teachers from HTX in Aalborg. All of the teachers interviewed teach technology as a subject, but all of them have different backgrounds. And this is what is very special for this subject. You have to have experience, so you have to be, you can't teach coming directly from the university as you can from any other subjects. You actually have to have a lot of years of experience before you can actually teach this subject. So they have different professional backgrounds. Some are engineers, most are engineers. There's also a vet teaching. So they have very different professional backgrounds, with also it's very clear when they teach in very different ways.
Mette, please remember time.
Yeah, I will hurry.
Please speed up.
Good. So the findings of this paper actually support what we saw in the observations, that the teachers do have a very complex and wide role when teaching these subjects. A role that both changes depending on whether you teach first, second, or third year students, but also changing depending on the strength of the individual student. And it was also found that the teachers not only have to shift between teacher-centered and student-centered learning, but they also have to take on a lot of other different roles. We added here like social worker. They have to be like a safety net for the students. They have to be practical helpers. They have to be masters in the workshops, and a lot of other different roles. And it also became very clear doing these observations and interviews that it creates a dilemma for the teachers when using PBL as a teaching pedagogy, because they have to use that and at the same time have a very teacher-centered responsibility for the students' learning. And this dilemma seems to have some restrictions to the teachers when they teach. So the conclusion is that we think this calls for very clear support for the teachers' training to be actually able to work with this very hybrid role, because if this is recognized and this is acknowledged by the management, it will be possible to actually identify some further avenues for further pedagogical development for the teachers when teaching this subject. Yes, that was it.
Thank you very much, Mette. Great. And we will go on with the presentation from Liliana.
Good morning, good afternoon. It's a pleasure for me to participate in this event. I am Liliana and I am going to present the work entitled Encouraging Faculty Towards the Curriculum Transformation of Engineering Programs. This is the team that helped us to carry out this experience, Lorena and Claudia. They are industrial designers, and Alejandra and me, we are electronics engineers. We work in an interdisciplinary faculty that have 8 undergraduate programs and 14 graduate programs in engineering and management fields. This work shows an experience for motivating faculty members to design student-centered approaches for engineering education. This teacher training program seeks to encourage the change by using active learning experiences, promoting a shift in the teacher's attitude, and strengthening the collaborative work and communication that we consider essential skills for project-based learning. For the last reason, we promote these 3 principles: communication, collaboration, and exemplarity. This initiative is aligned to the transformation of classroom as active learning spaces, where we use the space as a motor of the change. We design a typology that considers each member of our community as a networking node. We define 4 spaces: transition, collaboration, connection, and ideation. Transition that seeks to bridge the traditional education to active learning. Collaboration as a space for working with others. Connection that provides a scenario for randomly gathering. Ideation challenges your imagination and your roles as a teacher or students is a thinking room. Thus, the active learning classroom had become a catalyst for the teaching transformation. Our approach has 4 stages called interpretation, disruption, communication, and transformation. Interpretation focuses on exploring creative tools of the design thinking. The main purpose of this moment is to promote the empathy in the teachers. Here, teachers recognize their roles and the role of their students as actors of their classroom experiences. The second moment is disruption. In this moment, participants develop activities related to novel topics for their professional fields, fostering their divergent thinking. You can imagine engineers and accountants learning about color theory. This moment definitely offers a disruptive environment. The third moment is communication. Here we use playful activities like to model figures with clay and write a report on how to build their model using only technical language, so another group can reproduce the model based on the written report. On the left, you can observe good reading communication, and on the right, an example of limited communication or bad clay sculptures. The last moment is transformation. In this moment, we introduce the project-based learning by using workshops and hands-on activities. In these activities, participants construct learning experiences or design new frameworks for their classes or programs. You can observe that this training program allows teachers feel, think, and act as students, and evaluate the advantages and limitations of these educational approaches compared to their teaching-centered practices. How to transfer this kind of approach to remote teaching? Which other roles are demanded by project-based learning when fostering it among your colleagues? Thank you so much for your attention. I send you a big hug from Colombia.
Thank you very much, Liliana. Great. And let us then turn to the last presenter in this session, Carsten Menzel, talking about assessment methods.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm presenting a paper about assessment methods in split level, which means project and problem-based learning scenarios with an emphasis on building information modeling. So the paper was co-authored by Dr. Michael Otreba from Munster Technological University. In our paper, we present this split level scenario, which was implemented at University College Cork, Michael and my previous employer. So we had students in that course from an honors bachelor degree program, a 4-year program in civil engineering, But we also had participants in that project-based course from a 90-credit, 1-year master degree program in information technology in architecture, engineering, and construction. The problem given to the whole student cohort was to develop a design for a 3-story so-called green building, which means a building with a lot of renewable technologies attached to it. And specifically, the students had to build a building information model from that building. In the paper, we do not talk about the design process, team building, but we talk specifically about assessment methods for that split level scenario. What was a challenge to us? The acronym BIM represents a totally new approach how to manage, let's say, digital support in the AEC domain. The point is that practitioners aim to share, no longer to exchange, but really to share information about product models. So in case of the buildings, this stretches from the foundation over the core and shell, building services systems and energy systems, but also other related systems, which, for example, are necessary during the construction process, such as support structures, scaffolding, formwork, whatever. But also the process models. And with process models, we mean that participants must understand as individual experts what is their role within a specialist team to contribute information, to check the quality of information from others, and what is the role of the multiple specialist teams within an overall project team. And you can imagine that this challenge is not easily to be mastered to deliver. In case of Cork, it was a 12 weeks program. All of the necessary knowledge and to provide opportunities to students to experience how to deploy that knowledge within such a short duration. So in the paper, we describe assessment methods on the basis of learning outcomes, structured assessment, but here in that short kickoff, I would like to emphasize also on the role of peer evaluation in project-based learning, especially delivered by the master students, because it gave them an opportunity to contribute their already gained experience in practice. Usually in Ireland, master students are coming back after they worked for a few years in practice. But it also allowed us as lecturers to, so to say, exploit these capabilities and to provide a continuous quality management in the course. So the bachelor students got a much faster feedback, a more in-depth feedback, and it kept the motivation of both student cohorts much higher in that project, and they also really had to interact with each other. And of course, the master students were freed up, so to say, from producing the content, but they could, through that involvement in the assessment, also gain further experience in management skills, team leadership skills, quality management. So from our point of view, it was a win-win situation. And in the paper, we also describe how the grades improved. And we argue that this was achieved through an increase in the motivation from the students. So as a future contribution, through a detailed and structured description of, let's say, assessment styles, of assessment criteria, there's also an opportunity that in a more and more increasing specialist world that universities can join forces. We can bundle the expertise of multiple specialist teachers. There is the opportunity for agreed joint curricula And in that way, we can, let's say, send our students into virtual classrooms, join classes, and the best teacher with the highest expertise then delivers parts of a course. But through transparent assessment criteria, it becomes possible to join forces and, let's say, to avoid the impression of unfair judgment in those scenarios. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. Great. And now we are ready to a round of clarifying questions. Are there any questions? Please raise your hand. I can nearly see all of you. So you can do that, or you can put it into the chat. If you also write a question in the chat, please, if you do that, please then just put a cross, and I will call for you. So you actually ask the question here in the forum. Any clarifying questions? No. Okay, then I have a question to the panel. Liliana, you had some question in the end of your slides. Could you please put them into the chat? And maybe you also had that. And maybe also you had that, Carsten. So just put them into the chat, because I could not write them down. But I have a first question to the whole panel here, because Mette was talking about the hybrid role of the teacher in PBL. And I wonder somehow if this is something that you can recognize also in Colombia and in Germany. But Mette, maybe could you please start explaining a little bit more about what do you mean by a hybrid role?
Yeah, I can try to do that. I think when teaching the technology subject or the technical subject at the higher technical examination program, you have to, and it's a high school level, you have to have different roles. Now, if we, for example, would compare with the higher education, I think we in higher education can say, okay, the students have the responsibility for their own learning. It's not as easy when we're talking high school education, because the teachers also have the some of the responsibility for the students' learning, and the students are not that old. They are around 16 to 18 years old. So there's also like a what is that called? Sort of like there's a development in how much they're actually able to do from the first year to the third year. So the role changes all the time for the teachers. Sometimes it has to be teacher-centered. Sometimes when, for example, end of second year, one of the teachers said, now they should have learned everything that we can learn them. Now they should be able to steer their own process, do their own projects for the third year. So it started out teacher-centered and ends student-centered. So the role is continually changing. Sometimes they have to be, what is that called? Like sometimes they have to hold their hand, sometimes they have to be the one steering the process, and in other projects where the students are maybe even more skilled, they have to have another role. Maybe they're more of a facilitator, like they would be when we talk the Alba model. So I think the hybrid role, we're sort of trying to indicate that it changes all the time. They have a lot of roles, and it's continually changing. Yeah.
Liliana, you also actually have your own question that besides facilitator, which other roles are demanded by PBL? But can you recognize anything with a hybrid role?
Yes, listen to me. I here, for example, and I think that even in higher education, the teachers must change of roles because they have a lot of different learning experiences. Learning in which maybe it's more common teaching-centered approaches or practices of teacher-centered approaches. And other practices, for example, active learning in which they need not only to play the role of the facilitator, but they need to change among different roles. For example, expert and facilitator and designer and mentor. And it's very difficult sometimes to harmonize these different roles in the practice. But this is the big challenge of the teacher, to understand that the teaching now is different, that the teaching is not only lecturer, that the teaching needs different moments and different elements, and you need to put together in order to help your students to improve their learning.
Okay, and what about you, Carsten? You haven't said so much about the role of the teacher, but you have focused more in the paper on assessment, and we will return to that. But the role and this multifaceted role of the teacher.
I think for some people it is hard to give up that role of a person delivering knowledge in a structured way.
Yeah.
So it may need some practice and some expertise to say, I let the whole show go. And I enable probably also tutors and in our case, with the split level design, the master students to take over the role of team leaders and to, let's say, steer that project and to shift from the role of a lecturer to more to the role of a mentor, to mentor the team. Probably also you could say to coach the team that everyone on board achieves is a finally defined goal through certain milestones. And to prepare that without, let's say, speaking it out is probably an important lesson to be learned by the teachers. To lay out or to pave the road, but not to steer the car. This is how I would like to describe it, probably.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Liliana, you're doing training of the facilitators, of the teachers. You have, can you say something a bit more about the experiences with this training, and are you addressing also this with different roles, and how do you do that?
Yes, this training, specifically this program training, focus on strengthening two abilities: communication and collaboration, because we know that maybe the chain is easier if you work with others, and it's very difficult when you have a lot of experience in teaching-centered approaches. When you are a lecturer, you think that the things that you made are good and it's enough, and you don't want to change. And this training is focused on to show you how the work with others help us to understand that maybe you can improve your teaching, and it's better when you work with others. This is the core of this program training. Mm-hmm. And all, of course, all experiences that we develop in this training are active learning experiences. You need to feel, to live this experience, so you can understand what happened with your students when have the opportunity to live this kind of scenarios, learning scenarios.
Yes. Mette, do you know if your teachers at the technical high school have ever got any training at all?
If we're talking about training in problem-based learning,
Yeah.
No. That's not training, no.
So it's experience, it's learning by experience.
It is.
And common sense.
Yeah. And I know that right now they're talking about, with the different teacher associations, actually creating courses in problem-based learning, talking about what is the problem, how do we define it, you know, what are we teaching the students? Because I'm associating a little bit what Liliana also says, like, there's no common language about how to actually work with this. And if there's not a common language, it's very difficult to discuss or communicate or have some sort of dialogue about how do we actually work with this. So that is what they're starting to do right now. So there's no training right now, but hopefully it's coming.
And what about Carsten, what about in your program? Is there any training there?
No, I can confirm that there was not great deal of, let's say, training delivered. I, so to say, also learned it on the job. I got early in contact with Renate Fruchter with their project-based and problem-based learning lab in Stanford. And this was the motivation to start to work in that area, right? And we try now to work with our students' help, with the people in our institute, but on, let's say, faculty level or university level, I do not see specific training programs in that direction.
Carsten, your assessment, you focus on assessment, and I was thinking during your presentation if peer assessment is something that you're using and how that actually can be combined also with the teacher's role.
So to say, we had probably a waterfall approach, right? So we try to enable the master students to take over the team management of the specialist teams in the bachelor program. Mm-hmm. And this gave us also more time to work more intensively with the master students and to provide, I don't want to call it some training, but some enabling mechanisms that they could survive in their mentor or peer evaluation job. And in this way, it was more a lecturing to the master students to equip them with the knowledge to participate in the problem/project-based scenario of the undergraduate students. And we are back again in the hybrid role of a teacher, right?
Yeah. Yeah. But I wonder, Mette and Liliana, have you had any combination of peer assessment or formative assessment related into the teacher role?
Yes, especially peer assessment. We observe the performance or the experiences of our colleagues, and we feedback about what happened, what we think that is great, what we think that is a limitation on how to improve this assessment design. This is an idea. This is the idea of this kind of program, because you can share in another scenario different than the school meeting, and you are free to express different opinions about the work.
Yeah, no, for the higher technical examination program, there's no specific peer assessment or assessment, which is, I think, one of the challenges. because they're actually not, it seems, I did another article, it seems that the teachers are actually just agreeing to disagree. So if we would want to do some sort of peer assessment or actually work together on something, many of the teachers feel that then there's someone else that wants to decide or change how I'm actually doing things, and they're not interested in that. So there's a lot of what do you call that? They are very sensitive about their work and how they do it, and it's very specific to each classroom and each teacher. So they're not really working with that at all, actually.
Okay, thank you. Jette, you have some questions.
Yes. Actually, I remember 10 years back, I had come to your university, Annette, and Klaus was there to teach us PBL that time. I want to ask the question, like the teamwork, face-to-face meeting, and then working in a team while doing some activities to learn PBL. Was very, very nice actually that time. But then now for this COVID situation, online teaching, how it is facing the challenges in PBL, especially for online teaching and all. This is my question.
Anyone who wants to contribute to an answer to this? Henrik, you are doing a lot of distance supervision.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I think my experience is that it can be very difficult to have the supervision on the distance, and it's much easier when you have the relation with the students before. But still, I think that I have even tried conflict management online, and that gives some very hard challenges about that. But I think that the idea of kind of what shall I say, having the discussion, and there are some, what shall I say, new things about how do we react when we are together. Like here we have to turn the cameras on when we have a discussion in a small group and so on. So I think with some regulations and something, we can go quite far with the online supervision. But I think there are some barriers between the students and the teachers in that direction that can be sometimes challenging to solve, I think. But let me. You have a question?
No, like having those sticky notes put on the board.
Yeah.
What is the solution for such things? Like,
yeah. I think again, what is still trust and confidence is very important. And how do you build up confidence on the distance? So I think we need to find new ways of doing that. That could be kind of building up the relation in small steps. I think I had a meeting today with a student, and I think that's something that comes to us. I don't think I have a recipe for it right now, but I think we'll need to investigate and research further within this field, I think.
Yeah.
And we are also using systems like Padlets and Miro, and systems like this. Yeah. Klaus, you wanted to say something here?
Oh, I just wanted to mention like Padlet. Okay. I'm not using it myself. I'm using the old-fashioned Google Doc. But there are many of these similar ways where you can have smaller groups interact, and then you as a facilitator can follow them and comment on it, and that way share between you.
Yeah,
I have a comment. What I see is that maybe the connection between the students and the facilitator are more easy now on one way, because now you can just connect with the student anytime. and that gives some opportunities, I think. Then you can have the face-to-face talk with students, and it's very easy to arrange. So I think using that, I think, gives a very close, that can build up the relationship very, very quickly, because you can just have the meeting, and then you can sit a little more face-to-face. And I think now we can focus more on the individual student than on the groups now, because I think during my last years, I think I've been very focused on the group. Now I can maybe be a little more focused on the individual, and that's new for me, in fact.
Carsten, you also wanted to say, yeah?
Yeah, probably what is also important, and I forgot to mention, the master program in Cork was already a hybrid program before Corona. So we allowed remote students coming back from practice, and let's say students working in presence immediately progressing from the bachelor into the masters. But what was important is that we introduced the students to the, let's say, electronic tools and the capability of the electronic tools. And we also had contributions from guest lecturers. And this was sometimes a little harsh in the beginning, to also tell them, please restrict yourself with a number of tools to be used, so that the students could develop some routine and could explore the features of a limited number of electronic tools. For example, how do I use breakout groups in a certain Adobe Connect or GoToMeeting or whatever exists, but to find the right mixture between development of, let's say, practical skills and then exploiting the features of these tools. We also saw, this was impressive to me, in Cork we insisted to have a 1 week kickoff with everyone being in presence, because we believe this contributes to the team building. But now in COVID, we also see if you work with smaller groups, it's also possible to achieve such a team building process.
Yes. Thank you. And now back to you, Jette. You have 2 questions. Maybe you should start out with the one for Carsten.
Yeah, I can do that. Thank you, Carsten, for a nice presentation. I just wanted to ask you, because you mentioned design, and I see design as a kind of a solution. We're already in formatting some kind of solution. What was the problem that the students worked on? And how did you actually go about assessing students' understanding of the problem?
No, the problem was that they had to come up with the development of a part of a design of a, let's say, building. So they had a section, and we also gave them incremental problems. So to start with the development of the core and shell, then we had milestone meetings where they had to present. The groups had to, let's say, harmonize and to find mistakes on the intersections of the individual sectors of the building. And when the core and shell was ready, we progressed in the second phase of the development of a specific type of a building services system. In our case, it was an underfloor heating system. And so the overall problem was develop the design of a building that is energy efficient, but then we broke it down into smaller problems which could be more tangible and which guided the students through multiple phases of the project. So actually we had 4 phases.
Okay, so the problem was that the building was not energy efficient, and then they had to do something about it, the students, to design another kind of system.
No. It was really, here is a spot, and now please. Actually, we had already some technical drawings from the real building provided by our Office of Buildings and Estates. And so students had some guidance let's say, also to compensate for certain missing knowledge. Say we are in the second year of a 4-year civil engineering degree, so they couldn't really work out the design for everything. Instead, they used a design from an engineer and let's say developed the building information models, the content for the building information model.
Thank you.
And you also have a question for Liliana, and Liliana has also responded here. So, but maybe Liliana, you could tell a little bit more about your answer.
Okay. Jet asked me about can you provide some examples of how you use disruption to facilitate the student learning. In this case, we have this program is for teachers, and in the disruption stage, we invite people from other fields. In my campus, most people belong to engineering or management or business management. And we invite, for example, designers or artists. We generate an excuse to talk, an excuse to work together. This is the idea. You can, for example, to design an activity about how to prepare or a receipt or maybe anything. But the idea is that you can to have an different activity and different topic that are not related with the field in which you are working every day. What is the idea with the purpose with this kind of activity? That you can learn something new, and this is good because you come back a student again. And second one is that you can tell with others to talk with others about this activity and to talk about many other business, and maybe this activity helps us to improve our collaborative work. This is the purpose of the disruption.
Thank you very much. So I think more or less, if there are no more questions, no more comments, then you have to be fast. Because, yes, Henrik, does that mean that you have a comment?
I have a little comment. And
yes.
I think the importance of the alignment of PBL, I think, is very, very important. And what we have observed at the ATX in Aalborg is that the subject of technology, so to speak, is handled the same way as biology or math and so on. But I think it's important to understand that it's more like a framework. It cannot be treated the same way, because it's more working with the disciplines than just a small subject like biology and so on. So I think it's important to understand that in the curriculum and make the right plan for it, and not just spread it out like 2 hours in one day and 2 hours working with the project in the next week and so on. So I think we need to, when we're working with PBL, we need to have it all fit together. Also, the last comment I have, that we see in the exams at the ATX, they have some conflicts because there are different expectations from the different teachers and working in sensors and so on. So when we have a teacher coming from another place, they can totally disagree with the project that's been made. So we need to have a very common understanding of it, and I think that's very interesting. Getting the same language, as Mette also talked about.
And this is why also the teacher training is so important, that we actually try to understand each other's practices. Yes. Exactly. So thank you very much, and thank you to you, Mette, and Liliana, and Carsten for your input to the discussion, and to you, Henrik, and thank you for the questions. I think that we have only scratched here a little bit in the surface, but at least I think it shows that being a teacher in a PBL environment, it actually takes you need to take a lot of different roles on, and the most difficult part is maybe to situate, to understand what is it that the students they need, or where are the students. And it's not getting any easier when you are at a distance, I would say. On the other hand, the students, they have to express themselves and to be more explicit. These are 50 minutes sessions, and we started on time, so I think we will also end on time. So thank you very much. In 10 minutes, another session will start, where on another topic, which is the curriculum design and PBL implementations. So hope to see you there as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
So, Stine, alt okay?
Yes, alt okay. Nu skal du videre til det næste.
Jeg går videre til det næste. Det er godt.
Ja, god
Hej.
fornøjelse. Hej.